Let's move on to our TV replacement 2 by taking that clip and dragging it into a new composition. And let me just organize this a bit more. Video, and drag all of these video clips into that folder. So I'm going to you're going to have access to this project file, and it's going to be the final project file. But as I'm working on this, I'd like to make it sure that it's a little bit more organized for you. Okay, so now with TV replacement 2, we are replacing this same TV. One thing that the director did when they were shooting, they used this green screen tape, which sometimes can help, but it's more beneficial when the shot is moving. For a static shot like this, which is just still, you saw in the last lesson that it's very easy to just mask out a TV and add, your replacement. So they didn't really need to do this, and this actually created a little bit of extra work for me because it's harder to get that perfect edge. Either way, let's get on with it. The first thing we're going to do is mask out this TV screen like we did in the past, but we're going to have to zoom in quite a bit more to get close detail. So I'm at 200%. And then again with our pen tool, I'm just going to mask around this screen. But of course, I want to make sure that I select the tape as well. Something like so. Just going around, going around, going around. And that's pretty good. Let me reverse this mask, press M on my keyboard, subtract. Let me add a little bit of feathering, press F on my keyboard, drag up the feathering to something pretty small. I think like 5 pixels even would be good. This is 4K footage, so it's pretty good for working with, screen replacements and green screen and all of this kind of stuff. All right, so that looks pretty good. I want to take that same video clip, the ocean, put it behind our clip, and actually let's put it in front to start. Let me zoom out to 100% so we can see it a little bit better. I'm going to shrink down the ocean clip. So press scale to bring up the scale, put it right in front of our TV. And we're going to use a 3D rotation to match the rotation of this TV screen. So let's enable 3D by checking on this 3D cube. And then with the Y rotation, I'm going to rotate until it matches sort of how the screen looks. Now I can actually put the ocean layer beneath our TV layer so we can see. And when I do that, I might be able to see better what matches. So it's almost like 90 degrees from the camera. And so as I do that, I want to make sure that, I don't want to move my TV replacement. I want to make sure that it's the right size. So I'm going to bring up scale. It's covering the whole edges. So I'm going to increase the scale to make sure it's covering all of those edges. So that looks pretty darn good. So if I zoom out, fit up to 100, you'll see that looks pretty good. I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the last one by adding a little bit of darkness to the screen itself. Duplicate this top layer, press M to bring up your mask, switch it from subtract to add, and whoops, I forgot. I realized that I couldn't do that with this one because we have this tape on it. So let me delete that. And what I'm going to do is add all of our effects to a pre-composition. So let me right-click our ocean layer, pre-compose it. I'll call this TV screen for TV2. Double-click it. And now what you see inside of our composition is just the video itself. So back on our TV replacement 2, if I bring up R, the pre-composition is what's actually rotated, which is good because now if I go into this pre-comp for the TV, I can add all kinds of effects that will appear on this screen. So what I actually did was I went into this pre-comp, I added the TV replacement 1 screen. So I dropped this on here like so. And then I Let's zoom out just a little bit so I can see everything. Then I increased the size of this screen, so the TV replacement, until it covered the whole screen. Moved it in place. And then I changed the blend mode. Let me remember what I did. Hard light. So I always like matching. So I'll choose hard light. So that looks pretty good. Now if I go back to TV replacement 2, you can see that is applied in that screen. Awesome, right? So I can add the same sort of effects as well. I can take this adjustment layer, take it to TV screen 2, paste it, make sure I extend it throughout this entire clip. And one thing I noticed is that with the TV replacement layer, it's only 4 seconds long. It's not going to go through this whole clip. So right here, it's going to turn off. So it's going to get a little brighter. So I can create a freeze frame for this layer. So right click, time, freeze frame. And now since this is a freeze frame, I can adjust it and just extend it to the very end of this composition. I want to make sure the adjustment layer is beneath that TV layer, so that looks a little bit better. So that looks pretty good. One thing though that I did in the original is have this sort of TV turn on effect. It started with some fuzz and then it turned into the TV screen itself. And you'll also notice I added this reflection, which I'll show you how to do too. But first, let's add the actual fuzz. And so to do that, I use a cool trick. So let's create 2 solids, Command Y. One is going to be white. Click OK. And then Command Y again, and that's Control if you're on a PC, and that's going to be black. Put the black solid beneath the white. And then with this top white layer, you simply change the blend mode to Dancing Dissolve. Then decrease the opacity, so press T to bring up opacity, and decrease, and you can see that it creates this sort of white noise, and depending on how you want it to look, you can increase or decrease the opacity. So I have those 2 layers now, and I'm going to pre-composition those into one that's called static or white noise or whatever. So now I have to make sure that I time the white noise turning on after she presses the button. The cool thing in After Effects when you're working with pre-compositions is if I go to this point in this composition, so right after she clicks the button, starts walking away, so right around here, then I double click into our TV screen replacement, it goes to the exact keyframe that I want. So now if I drag this to the right until it's off, you'll see if I go back to the TV replacement that it's off. Then I go 1 frame over and it's on. So just know that when you're working between pre-comps, that's how the timing works. So I just want to actually fade this on. So press T to fade on, set T keyframe for opacity, move that forward just a handful of frames, then set it to 0. Then of course I want this to be black first, so I don't want this ocean on it. So let me drag the ocean on over here. So now the ocean is off, so it goes from a blank screen to the static. And then up here, let's fade from the static by setting a keyframe for 100%, going forward, decreasing to 0, so it fades onto the ocean. Going back to our TV replacement, I realize that it doesn't come on until too late, so let me go forward to where I want it to fade on, or maybe right around here. Go back into our pre-comp and move these keyframes up. So it's just a quick sort of white noise, and then to the TV program of choice, our ocean shot. So now we have the full comp, turns on. One thing that I think the white noise looks a little bit too bright right here, so I can go in and decrease the opacity of these 2 keyframes. So let me go here and decrease that to like 80, maybe even like 50. Copy that over here. And now here it's a little bit darker. Cool, so we're getting there. The one thing that I did in the original was I added this sort of reflection right here, which I thought was pretty cool, because when you look at the original clip itself, this one right here, you do have this reflection of the window. So I was trying to figure out how can I match that. So what I did was I actually went into the composition. I added the TV replacement shot again. Then I created a freeze frame where this window is completely visible right there. So let me create a freeze frame right there. Right click, time, freeze frame. Now let me extend it. And then let me just drop the opacity a little bit to see what I'm doing. So let me drop the opacity to 50. Now I'm going to move this top layer over the TV. So I'm dragging it over to the right, using my rotate tool to rotate it, scaling it down, which you can do by clicking the edge and holding shift to lock its aspect ratio and just shifting it down if you don't want to go into the scale property down here. So that's pretty good. And let's put this below our original comp so we can see what it would look like. So something like that. I'm trying to match the original one. So let me open up our original. So that's kind of cool. Back into our composition. Maybe a little less of a rotation. Maybe a little bit bigger. So this is pretty cool, but you'll notice that in the original video that the reflection is only on the left-hand side of the TV. It looks like probably this part is reflecting, this part of the window frame is on the right-hand side of the TV. So let me create a mask for this. So let me zoom in, take our pen tool, make sure we have our TV reflection selected. So let me call this reflection so I know what I'm working with. Now mask around this like so. Add feathering, press F to add feather and increase the feathering, something like that. Maybe bring in these points like so. And then let me also change the blend mode. So I'm gonna scroll through these until it looks more like a reflection. Something like screen might look good. Let me go forward to see what it looks like over the video itself. And that looks pretty good. I can also, let me see what, I'm at 50% opacity. I can decrease the opacity if I want more or less of a reflection. So now if I zoom out, hey, that looks pretty good. I don't know about you, but that, if you're watching this, it looks pretty darn natural to me. I don't think many people would second guess what that looks like if they're not looking very, very closely. So in this lesson, we did a lot with the screen replacement. We used 3D rotation to make sure that the screen matched the rotation of the TV in the frame itself. We used our different layer adjustments that we used before. We created white noise with a cool, simple effect, the blend mode dancing dissolve. Then we also added this reflection to the TV, getting creative using the original shot and actually using a part of the original shot, which was this window in the background, to create that reflection, playing with blending modes to make sure that it all looks good, and using those freeze frames to make sure that our different clips are extended throughout our entire compositions. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. You're learning how we can use our skills in the real world. And in the next lesson, we're going to go over one more way to replace screens with Mocha, which is an add-on tool that you have with Adobe Creative Cloud.